Okay, so for those of you that have not been following along, and this is the first video of mine that you're watching, I wanted to give a quick overview of the car before I get into a cost breakdown and some ramblings and some spinning of tires. So it's a 98 GT. It's pretty rough around the edges, but it's all right. Stock trans, it's a T45. Car was originally automatic. I put a T45 in it a decade ago. It's an a New Edge 8.8, 373 gears, aluminum drive shaft, stock T45. It's got a McLeod Stage 2 clutch, I think. Gen 1 truck motor, has Mustang cams, truck timing cover, car manifold, control pack. That's it. BBK long tubes for the swap, and off-road X pipe into 2.5 inch New Edge Celine mufflers. Actually, I made like a little adapter at an exhaust shop, like a 3 inch to 2.5 inch reducer. Welded those up here myself. The car mostly gets autocrossed. I did a full Maximum Motorsports K-member, forward offset control arms, and Coney yellow adjustables under the front end with coilovers. And that's it, really. I didn't use, so it's a real simple fuel system. It's got the stock fuel line, -6 fuel line up here to the stock Coyote rail. Back there, it's got a Corvette fuel pressure regulator. I made some push lock lines with all AN fittings as cheaply as I could to hook up to the stock 98 GT fuel pump and hat. So stock fuel pump in the car. Control pack ECM mount on the firewall. My fuse panel is mounted up under this fender. Can't really show you, but I promise it's in there. Wiring going through the firewall right here. I cut a hole in the firewall. Stock ECM still in the car. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's get into it. All right, dudes. So I've been keeping up with my expenses on the Coyote swap, and I've got an Excel sheet here. I'm gonna go through everything on it real quick. I've done this two ways. I did it the way I did it, which was what I spent on everything, and then the total on what I spent, and then minus some stuff that I sold, and then I put optional here, yay, nay. Some of this stuff, oil pump gears, clutch, things like that were optional. Like if you were doing this swap as bare bones as possible, how cheap could you have done it? Maybe not the right way to do it, obviously, but like, could you get it done? I think so. And put yes, no by that. Did tallies. Spoiler alert, I think you can do a Coyote swap for $4 grand. Pretty handily. I spent about $6 grand on it. I got my engine for $650. I know this was a steal and it's abnormal, but I shopped around for a while and got lucky on a core that needed a lash adjuster. So it can be done. Obviously the engine is not optional, it was used. K-member, you can get a UPR or AJE K-member for $359. You can do spring purchase for $65. I did a full Maximum Motorsports front suspension under the car with the swap. So this isn't really true here, but if you were doing it the way I did it with as cheap of K-member as possible, you would have spent about $6 grand. I put optional because you can cut the stock K-member and run the stock K-member in springs if you're handy and if you have a welder, so not required. Control pack, I got it used for $1,100. It was brand new from a guy that gave up on his swap locally. You need that or a Holly or something to get this thing to run. Obviously not optional. Intake manifold, my engine didn't come with an intake manifold. Obviously, if yours did and you got it for $600 or whatever, cool. I did BBK swap headers and off-road X pipe. Not optional, really. There have been people that have ran 2-valve headers. They cut the flanges off of them, put Coyote flanges on, or you could run stock shorties, maybe. I've seen that done where you modify them. I didn't want to mess with all that, so I bought the stuff. I did oil pump gears, Mustang cams used, obviously optional. Boss valve springs, $100. Alternator is expensive. It was $400. I put yes because you could probably get an engine with an alternator You know, it's an approximation here. Don't get too personal about it. Clutch, you can reuse your stock clutch if you've got a good one and you have the right, well, no, you can reuse the clutch, I guess, regardless if you're using stock trans. I've got the T45 in the car. Flywheel turn, so I had a 2000 PI 2-valve, so I had an 8-bolt flywheel. The Blowfish power steering bracket, blah, 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 all this crap. Down here is where it's a little iffy. Miscellaneous. I bought a bunch of fuel fittings and a bunch of power steering fittings because I was figuring all this out. I don't recommend doing this unless you just want the engine bay cleaner. I think my engine bay looks pretty good with the power steering relocated and everything, but it's cheaper. It's actually cheaper. I spent $180 on this and $5 something on this. So it's cheaper to buy the power by the hour relocation bracket and flip your alternator and all that crap. And I think you can run the stock alternator, which saves you some money there too. So you could probably do that a little cheaper than that number. Okay, so I'm not going to bore everybody with all this. So I got lucky with some of my sold items as well. I sold my 2-valve. It was in good working condition, $900. It was a PI engine. A guy locally wanted it. I had comp cams and valve springs sitting around for it that were in good shape. BBK long tubes, an X pipe for the 2-valve, which is why I tore the car apart originally. Sold my intake manifold and cold air for $300. Got $2,500 out of all my used crap. So I actually spent $3,400 on my swap with all of these options that I mentioned. And if you had done it as cheap as possible, you could probably have done it for about $600. Believe it or not, folks, I don't know. There it is. Tell me I'm crazy, or, you know, I probably missed something that's $2,800 that I'm not thinking of. But so yeah, that's how I kind of calculated this. It's approximate, you know, it's not perfect, but I think it's a pretty okay-ish cost guide for doing this cheaply. Obviously, if you buy an engine off eBay for $3,800, you're blowing your budget. But if you don't know what you're doing and you buy an engine that has a tick and it ends up being a rod bearing and needs a crankshaft, you're better off buying a $3,800 eBay engine. So you got to take it for what it is and be smart about buying stuff and be smart about selling stuff. And you're not you won't spend a bajillion dollars doing it. Now let's go beat on this thing. If I had $1 for every time I strapped myself in and then realized I didn't hit go on the GoPro, I need me one of them little remote dealios, you know, you just hit the button. It's 2021, I'm still pushing buttons on GoPros.